I am a fan of free motion quilting, but I didn't get there overnight. But on the Husqvarna Viking Designer EPIC 2, I want to show you just how to set up your machine, which free motion foot is right for different situations, and what are kind of the tips that would be great to get started with. So this is one of our quilts from our Stitching Cosmos online course. Once all the blocks are embellished, I do quilt each block kind of individually. I think it just, they deserve it. So it is something that I've kind of learned over time. I wasn't always a free motion quilter, but with some practice, some guidance, and more practice, I got there, and I feel like I can quilt my own quilts. So start off with a straight stitch, and then what you're going to do is find at the very bottom of your screen a little circle with some squiggly lines in it, or it kind of looks like spaghetti, but that is for free motion quilting. And our free motion options. Okay, so 2 feet come with your machine, and a third one is optional. So first off, there is the regular R foot, or a free motion floating foot that comes with the machine. And when I say free motion floating, it does just that. It kind of floats above your fabric, and it's okay. It does come with the machine, and with just switching out your feet, you just slide that into position, and you're ready to stitch. All right, next. Second option would actually be using the foot that you would be using for embroidery. So it's kind of got a spring action to it. With embroidery, this arm sits above the screw. I'll show you this here. When it goes on, and then it has more of a hopping feature. And that hopping feature actually makes, I think, a prettier stitch because it can kind of hold the fabric down in place while that stitch is being connected with the bobbin thread. And when you're moving your fabric in all different directions, that is key. So then that would be the sensor Q foot. That would be that first option. Now I actually touched it and you heard a click. That click is actually the feed dogs automatically lowering for you. So you don't even have to do that on this machine. You just tell it that you're going to free motion quilt and it sets it up for you. The last one is probably my favorite. This one also is that free motion spring action feature. It's also an open toe foot, so I can see where I'm going. It also has kind of a little arm here. This is also going to sit above this screw. But before I put that on, I will need to take off this white ankle part. So I'll do that in just a second. The last thing let's talk about is your straight stitch throat plate. Highly recommended for when you do free motion quilting. It's going to help stabilize that needle through that smaller hole. And trust me, again, as you're moving that fabric in all different directions, it just keeps that needle creating that perfect stitch all the time. All right, so we have selected our feature. Our feed dogs are down, and I'm going to just switch over the throat plate, and then we can start free motion quilting once we put the foot on. As you put this foot on, come up the post, and then just make sure that this little spring guy is on top of that needle screw. And then you're going to just find where you can get this all reattached. Now we were just playing with the hand look quilt stitch that is done with the feed dogs up, and it's one of the stitches in your, I think it's the D menu. Yes, D menu stitch number 2, and we have done a video on how to set up for the hand look quilt stitch. It's a combination of clear thread, and then this thread color is what's actually in the bobbin. So that's what you're seeing off to the side there. Now sometimes I have been known to bring up my bobbin thread, but because the last thing we did, we cut the thread. It's really hard if you use the thread cutter in between kind of starts and stops. If you do want to bring up your bobbin thread by taking a stitch and holding on to this, just don't use your thread cutter at the end of your last stitch. So when you take a few stitches, you are going to notice the foot kind of going up and down, and that is what we're after here. And depending on how fast you move your fabric and how fast you sew, will determine how small or big your stitches are. Now I'm seeing something I need to correct right away, and that is the tension. So let's take a look here. We see a little bit of the bobbin thread coming up to the top and not a lot of the variegated thread to the back side. So right now I'm going to just take my tension, drop it down from 4.0 to 3.0, and then just give it another little test run here. I like the sound of that, but I do want to peek at the back side, make sure I get that nice balance. What you're going for is that you can't tell what side of the fabric you actually free motion quilted from. So that is actually what I'm seeing. I didn't hold on to my thread. That's what that little part pulled down. So by the way, hold on to your thread. I do like that. I could probably just find a happy medium between the tension, maybe 3.5 could be that place. And then the next thing that we can do is actually adjust our speed a little bit. So if I drop my speed down to like half speed, it's almost like having a cruise control. So that means that as you sew, you'll find that you will max out, like that's as fast as that speed is, and your hands can start to get a nice rhythm, so your stitches start to become nice and even. That's the goal. Once you've kind of mastered that, then you can start to master stitching in some of the fun patterns that you would like to master.